Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Emily Hiles, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Flight Lieutenant Jessie Verstegen. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Lieutenant Joseph Mathews Jefferson. Joseph Mathews Jefferson was born in the Melbourne suburb of Auburn on the 21st of September 1890, the eldest of 8 children of John and Emily Jefferson. About 1900, the family moved to Sydney, where Joseph attended Scots College. He was a keen tennis player and an active member of the senior cadets, attaining the rank of captain. After he left school, Joseph worked in his father's shipping business as a timber merchant. When news of the Gallipoli landings reached Australia, he wrote and published a patriotic song with his sister entitled Gallipoli, a Marching Jingle. In 1914, Joseph married Nonna Bessel Brown at St Leonard's, and the next year the couple had a daughter, Norma. In February 1916, Jefferson volunteered for service in the Australian Imperial Force. With his military experience in the cadets, he was commissioned at the rank of lieutenant. He trained in Australia for several months before embarking at Sydney on the transport ship Vestalia in July 1916. He arrived in England in September and travelled to the army training camps on the Salisbury Plain. During his time in England, he was the adjutant of the training battalion at Herd Cot Camp. At the end of January 1917, Jefferson sailed to France. There he joined his unit, the 53rd Australian Infantry Battalion, and took command of 11 platoon. The unit had endured the coldest winter in northern France in decades. During February and March, the battalion spent time in the front lines and suffered small numbers of men killed and wounded each day, mostly due to enemy artillery. As the weather warmed up, the Allied forces discovered that the Germans had seemingly retreated. In fact, the German forces had undertaken a strategic withdrawal from their front lines to a heavily fortified position known to the Allies as the Hindenburg Line. One of the outposts along this line was the occupied French village of Bullecourt. Having attempted and failed to capture the village in April, British commanders decided to launch a second assault in early May. The 53rd Battalion did not take part in the initial assault on Bullecourt, but it entered the front lines in the days following the attack. During this period, German forces launched several counterattacks on the Australian and British positions. On the 10th of May 1917, Jefferson was standing in a front-line trench when a piece of shrapnel struck him in the head, killing him instantly. A fellow soldier in the battalion, Private Vincent Ferran, remembered Jefferson pushing him out of the way of the shell, only to be struck by the shrapnel himself. Jefferson was 26 years old. Jefferson's body was buried near where he fell, but in the subsequent fighting over the ground, the grave was destroyed by an artillery bombardment. Today, he is commemorated at the Villers-Bretonneux Memorial in northern France, alongside more than 10,000 soldiers who have no known grave. In Australia, Jefferson was survived by his parents, siblings, his widow Nonna, and his infant daughter Norma. Two of Jefferson's close relatives also served in the AIF. His brother-in-law was Brigadier General Alfred Bessel Brown, an artillery commander on Gallipoli and at the Western Front. Joseph's younger brother, Gunner John Jefferson, served in the 7th Field Artillery Brigade. He became sick in England before deploying to France and returned to Australia in 1917. Joseph Mathews Jefferson is listed on the Roll of Honour to my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. A photograph of his name is listed on the Villers-Bretonneux Memorial, is displayed today beside the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Lieutenant Joseph Mathews Jefferson, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall not grow old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director and staff, we would like to thank you for visiting the War Memorial today and for your continued support of the War Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.